All right. Shalom. Shalom. Um, not going to
Shalom.
say Shabbat Shalom because it's not the Sabbath, but
Hmm.
still, peace be um unto the people, unto your households, right? Want to first and foremost give all praises, glory, and honor be to the most high God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, right? Whose name is YAHAWAH, right? The God of the Israelites, right? We also want to say shalom to the people who are tuning in live. If you're not tuning in live and you're watching this video following after the live stream, then peace be unto you as well, right? But all praises, glory, honor be to the most high God. Uh, by way of his only begotten son, man, who serves as an instrument of salvation. Tonight, this is episode one, I guess. I'm just calling it that because I know I wanted to do a series of going into the understanding of certain customs, practices, cultures that we have in this land that we live in, which is known as America. So, this is episode one of the title of A Holy People in the Pagan World, right? A series of, I guess you could say, lessons to, again, shed light on the pagan traditions of the world and how, as followers of the Most High, we shouldn't partake thereof. Today, we're focusing solely on, understanding what Halloween is, going into the history behind it, going into a little bit of, how a lot of the different practices and cultures got mixed in and looped in with Halloween. So it should be a good one. Nonetheless, I think it'll be one that a lot of people will enjoy from just the overall knowledge standpoint. But before we do any of that, getting into the Bible, getting into the history, we always want to open up the lesson by, the blowing of the shofar. So um, let's go ahead and play the blowing of the shofar. Uh, ring the alarm in a spiritual sense because we're having a holy gathering right now. And, let's break bread following.
It's on. I can't hear it.
Khan, man, that was the blowing of the shofar by the mighty brother Obadiah. So, again, man, this is a series of holy people in a pagan world, right? Just shedding light on how followers of the Most High should be set apart in all their ways. We're going to read like we normally do from top to bottom. So, um, without further ado, man, let's get straight into the Bible. Let's set the stage. What is the overall, I guess you could say, the focal point of the message? Let's go to the book of Jeremiah, chapter 10. Let's start at verse number 1.
Con. This is Jeremiah chapter 10, starting at verse number 1. It says, Hear ye the word which the Lord speaketh unto you, O house of Israel.
God, you can keep this chapter wide because we're gonna read multiple scriptures. So uh you can keep this chapter wide. And
Con.
if you could, Brother Denal, read Jeremiah 10, starting from the top again one more time.
Con. Jeremiah 10, starting from the top, it says, Hear ye the word which the Lord speaketh unto you, O house of Israel. Thus saith the Lord, Learn not the way of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the heathen are dismayed at them.
Right. So starting right here in verse 2, Jeremiah 10 and 2, one thing the Lord put on the spirit of Jeremiah to prophesy is for us to not learn the ways of the heathen, right? Many people would think that because in verse 1, right? Well, I'll put it like this. I believe that same thing as well, that when the Lord prophesied this, he was talking to a specific people, the children of Israel in specific, because again, there was a chosen people that God had, that he gave his word to, that he gave his commandments to, that he gave his laws to. And they were to not be like everyone else on the face of the earth. However, if you're someone who believes in the sense that you are a child of God, right? You have to follow a lot of what the Most High gave to the children of Israel. And that'll be the same thing even in the kingdom, where there will be other nations where that will be following the laws of the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. So it's the same way. We cannot learn the ways of these other nations. We cannot learn the ways of other people's customs, their practices, their religions, anything that they do. If you're a believer in the Most High God of Israel, you have to separate yourself from the rest of the world through certain practices, right? Let's read. Well, let's stop right there, right? Because we'll come back to what the rest of Jeremiah 10 is saying. But again, learn not the way of the heathen, right? And be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, because the heathen are dismayed at them. Now, let's go into a little bit of history first. So Halloween, right? If you could, who's ever sharing the screen, I believe is Brother Azrael. If you could go to Google, right, and just pull up what is Halloween. Just type in what is Halloween.
Halloween is a holiday celebrated on October 31st, marked by activities like dressing up in costumes, trick or treating, and carving jack o' lanterns.
Right. So you can see right here, um, October 31st is the date that Halloween is celebrated, right? It's always 5 questions you should ask yourself when researching and learning new information. It's pretty much like who, what, when, where, why, or how, So the when is October 31st, right? The who, right, is what we're about to get into. If you read the second sentence, it says it originated from the ancient Celtic festival of Samhain. That's how that word is pronounced, because that M and H make a W sound. So um, it says it originated from the ancient Celtic festival of Samhain, which marked the end of summer and the beginning of winter, and was believed to be a time when the boundary between the living and the dead was blurred, allowing spirits to roam the earth. Right. So the who in this, I guess you could say, answering or understanding what Halloween is, the who were the people that created this, or who were the people that this, I guess you could say, this day was supposed to honor and revere. It was the Celts or it was the dead. But let's get into this. So the Celts, right? Um, if you can you type in Celts and just pull up images, right? And just show images of the Celts, Celts.
I think they pronounce it Celts.
Or Celts, right? I know that it's pronounced differently across I guess you could say different parts of the world, because I know there's an NBA team called the Celtics, right? That are pronounced the Celtics, but you know, it's pronounced differently across different languages. So so you can see, right? These are images of what the Celts could possibly have looked like, right? You see a map right there of the region that they could have lived in, right? So the Celts or Celts, right? Um, they were a tribal, and I have this in my notes, right? So they were a tribal Iron Age people dominating much of Europe from the British Isles to Turkey, right? Um, Salaki, it says their society was led by Druids, a powerful priestly class who acted as priests, judges, scholars, and sorcerers, right? Similar to the Israelites with the tribe of Levi, how we had priests from the tribe of Levi, how not necessarily the tribe of Levi in specific, but we had judges, right? and we had scholars, and the priests, in a sense, to other people that weren't Israelites, could be considered sorcerers if they didn't understand, some of the things that the Lord, our God, commanded us to do uh, in certain situations, like when they had the Urim and the Thummim, and they would make potions to, see if a woman was pregnant. So there was a lot of things going on that people would consider the Levites to be sorcerers, as well as we understand them to be the people who are priests were found in that tribe, Levi, right? But let's keep reading. It says, priests, judges, scholars, and sorcerers. The Roman conquest. So this is talking about when Rome conquered the Celtics or the Celtics, right? It says the Celts were conquered by the Roman Empire in a series of war, most notably the Gallic Wars. So if you could on Google, type in Gallic, which is Gallic, Gallic Wars, right? And I'm not necessarily reading from the screen, so I know that people may be trying to follow along. I'm reading from the information that I kind of got from a multitude of different sources and sites. I guess I kind of ran this through, the chat GPT, and just kind of gathered some more information to kind of, I guess you could say, format the information I found in a way that people could understand it, because I know that you can't just take a bunch of information and present it to people from different parts of, I guess you could say, history. At least I'm not necessarily skillful at doing that, so I kind of use chat GPT to kind of help me formulate, how the history would be, I guess you could say, brought out and formatted, right? But as you can see, man, the Gallic Wars, right? It was from 58 through 50 BC, right? And it said these wars were led by Julius Caesar, who which subjugated the Celtic Gaul, modern France, and the latter conquest of Britannia beginning in 43 AD under Emperor Claudius, right? So pretty much, man, the Celtic people were the people who founded what we know as Halloween, right? And all I'm doing is reading a bit of their history, how they were conquered by the Romans through the Gallic Wars. Um, Pretty much they were subjugated to Rome starting in 43 AD under Emperor Claudius. This military and cultural conquest forced the blending of Roman paganism with Celtic paganism. So, in a sense, um, it's a term for it that we'll get into. Uh, I forgot the term. It's somewhere down in my notes that I guess I found out through ChatBT was a term to call or to label what it looks like when one religion mixes with another pagan understanding or something like that. And I think it's called syncretism, right? Could you pull that definition up? It's called syncretism, and it's spelled Syncretism, right?
I think Obadiah's middle name is Claudius, ain't it?
That's crazy.
No, my first name.
Dang.
Claudia is my first name.
So your name is Claudius Julius Caesar Tiberius.
The third.
Dang, God. That's crazy. But yeah, so pretty much, man, syncretism, I'll just read it from the screen. It says the amalgam. Well, I don't know really how to pronounce that word. So the amalgamation or attempted amalgamation of different religions, cultures, or schools of thought, right? Or verse 2, the merging of different inflectional varieties of a word during the development of a language. So I think definition 1 is more so pointing to what syncretism is in the terms of the way we're talking about it, how Rome mixed their beliefs with kind of some of the Celtic beliefs and traditions, the same way in which America did the same thing, right? If I know that we don't have a PowerPoint slide that we're visualizing from, but if you're listening and you following along verbally as to what I'm saying, right? All we did so far was just talk about Halloween. You know, we talked about the when it's celebrated and who were the people that kind of founded this thing and who were they to revere during this time. So the people that founded this were the Celts. We were reading a bit of their history, how again, they were a tribal Iron Age people dominating much of Europe from the British Isles to Turkey. And also they were led by Druids, right? A priestly class who were kind of like acted as their priests, judges, scholars, and sorcerers. I'll read this again while we're on the topic. Again, the Celts were conquered by the Roman Empire in a series of wars, most notably the Gallic Wars, 58 through 50 BC, led by Julius Caesar, which subjugated Celtic Gaul, modern France, and the later conquest of Britannia beginning in 43 AD under Emperor Claudius, or Brother Obadiah's first government name, right? It says this military and cultural conquest forced the blending of Roman paganism with Celtic paganism. So they blended a lot of their, I'm not going to say the Romans changed a lot of their religious understanding and beliefs to match that of what the Celts followed, but I'm going to say that they're, being that Rome conquered those people, it's evident that there probably was some intermingling going on a religious and pagan sense between those people, right? Which is why we looked up the word syncretism. Now, if you on the screen, right, it says syncretism between Celts and Romans created a new Gallo-Roman religion by blending their distinct deities and practices, right? Specifically, this lesson is centered around Halloween, which we'll get into more how Rome could have adopted some of those practices, right? Examples, right? Let's look at the screen, though. Examples include the fusion of the Celtic goddess Sulis with the Roman Minerva and Bath, and the identification of local Celtic war gods with Roman ones like Mars. So there were a lot of tie-ins with Rome and with the Celts, but it's similar across a lot of religions. I'm pretty sure that there's somebody out there. We know a brother. I'll say this: we know a brother who's not in our necessarily camp, but he's a historian, right? He prides himself on being a historian. His name is Brother Eliel with the Anointed House of Saints. And one thing he's good at is understanding the history of Israelites who, I guess you could say, submerged into other various cultures and customs and took on different names across the face of the earth in different periods of time in history. So he's good at knowing, who the Vikings were, the Danes, the Scots, the Brits, the Druids. That's his avenue. That's his lane. He's somebody who you can go and talk to and find out more information from about. He could talk to you a lot about syncretism and how a lot of the Israelites who assimilated into different cultures and took on different names and practices, they kind of merged their new profound way of life and their new profound identity with their heritage. And that's pretty much what syncretism is. Again, it's just merging, right? The merging of religious beliefs. But as the brother's pulling up on the screen, man, there's a lot of information on, the Black Celts, right? There's a lot of information on, who the Celtics actually were. Because again, one thing that we pride ourselves on is the fact that when the Most High God in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28 and verse 25 said we would be removed into every kingdom of the earth, we don't think that he was lying when he said that. So there were probably a lot of our people assimilating into these traditions and cultures and customs, right? Through oppression, right? Some of them, and not everybody was through oppression. Some people probably left the area, left our original homeland, right? After being, I guess you could say, conquered and I guess you could say scattered, and they chose willfully to assimilate themselves, not necessarily due to oppression, but just due to the necessity of wanting to worship a God. We seen the same thing happen yesterday when we talked briefly about, Aaron and the golden calf, and how when Moses went up into the mount to receive the commandments of the Lord, a lot of our people panicked because they didn't know what became of Moses. So they felt the need to create themselves a God to worship. A lot of our people willfully did that. So everybody wasn't forced into different religions, cultures, and customs. Some people relocated, they just remigrated. I mean, excuse me, they migrated, they relocated, whatever you want to call it, and they chose to follow these different ways of life willfully. And they merged a lot of what they were learning or what they wanted to follow willfully with their heritage in a religious sense, right? So again, on the screen you can see the brother Azrael just pulling up different various images, right? Just about the Celts, just about things in history, right? Black Celtic warriors. I mean, there's so many things that you could pull up and so many rabbit holes that we could go down to prove or to figure out who the Celtics actually were, right? This is another image, I guess, Celtics and Halloween. What I should have did was put a lot of this information on a PowerPoint, and so that way we could share it and people could read along. But again, man, I had to take the easy way out and kind of use Chat GPT a little bit to kind of help me word a lot of the information I found, and put it all together for me, because I know that it's kind of tough presenting information from, different periods of time, different history, and kind of how you want it to read and word how you want it to say. So if you have these tools available to you, man, use them, because they can only help you in your biblical study, right? But let's go to the Bible real quick. Let's go to the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 9, starting at verse number 5, right? Starting at verse number 5. Ecclesiastes 9, starting at verse number 5.
Ecclesiastes chapter 9 and verse 5. For the living know that they shall die, but the dead know not anything. Neither have they any more a reward, for the memory of them is forgotten.
Right. So let's read verse number 6 too.
Excuse me. Verse number 6. Also their love and their hatred and their envy is now perished. Neither have they any more a portion forever in anything that is done under the sun.
Right. So pretty much, man, let's get into some more information, right? Why is it that believers of God should not follow what we know to be Halloween? Well, not only because, one, the people that it originated from were not the Israelites, right? It was the Celts. Now, again, the Celts could have been Israelite people that went off into a different way of living, right? That's cool and all, but it's still not the way that God told us to live. So, two, the second reason is being that the festival of Samhain, right? It was, I guess you could say, like what they refer to it as a blurred veil. And it's the belief that the dead return to earth. And it was a form of necromancy, which again, scripture forbids, as we read in Ecclesiastes 9, the dead don't know anything. Neither have they any more reward, for the memory of them is forgotten. So a lot of what we know as Halloween is to be like honoring the dead, the same way Hispanics have, specifically Mexicans, right? They have this 2-day Day of the Dead celebration or memorial for their fallen ancestors, which a lot of them go into their ancestors' graves, they dig them up, and they kind of like, parade them around in the streets during this festival. So what also I got from Chat GPT, it says the spirits the Celts feared were not departed ancestors, but demonic entities, right? So they feared demonic entities, not necessarily the ancestors that had passed on, right? But it says communing with the dead is forbidden. Of course, it's forbidden in the Bible. Let's go to the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 18, right? Deuteronomy, chapter 18, we're going to read verses 10 through 12. We're going to read 10, 11, and 12. Let's go to Deuteronomy 18. And again, all of this is information as to why believers, again, we should not be celebrating Halloween. Remember, the title of this lesson is A Holy People in a Pagan World. separating from Halloween. So we got to stop following certain customs because they're not of God. Not only are they pagan in tradition and origin, but there's a lot of spiritual aspects to it that we shouldn't partake of. So let's read this.
God, the book of Deuteronomy, this is chapter 18 and verse number 10. There shall not be found among you anyone that maketh his son or his daughter to pass through the fire, or that uses divination, or an observer of times, or an enchanter, or a witch, or a charmer, or a consulter with familiar spirits, or a wizard, or a necromancer. For all that do these things are an abomination unto the Lord. And because of these abominations, the Lord thy God doth drive them out from before thee.
Right. Again, a commandment specifically to the children of Israel because there were other nations following this. Now, if you're, again, we don't necessarily, the brothers on the screen don't necessarily believe in spiritual Israel. I know, contrary to popular belief, a lot of people like to think that, people can be Israelites by spirit. I'm not going to agree to that, right? Because the Israelites were actual physical bloodline people, the same way as the Philistines were, the same way as the Egyptians were, the same way as every other nation on the face of the earth that you can find in the Bible. They were physical people that actually existed. The children of Israel were physical people that actually existed, that had a God that gave them these laws to follow, to separate themselves from other people on the face of the earth. However, again, since we live in a world where people think that everybody can be an Israelite according to the spirit, so-called, I'm going to take the high road and say, if that's your belief and understanding, as someone who follows the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, if you believe you're Israel by spirit, you shouldn't be doing these things because this was the direct commandment from the Lord to not partake in these type of festivals, to not partake in these type of activities or practices, right? And specifically what we're talking about, Halloween, the Samhain, right? It was a festival built around what the Most High God called an abomination, built around being a necromancer, a consulter with familiar spirits, being wizards or magicians, right? For a day or a certain period of time. All of that is abomination, right? Costumes and disguises are a lot of what makes Halloween Halloween. People dress up as anything and everything that they want to be and they want to, portray for that day. Dressing as spirits or ghouls, right, was a form of imitation and appeasement of dark forces. Let's go to the Bible and let's read 1 Corinthians chapter 10 and let's go to verse number 20 and we're going to read 21.
I want to say something, man. Yeah. Hello. First, was you reading something, King?
What you mean?
Was you just reading? Was you just reading something? Because your screen wasn't shared. I didn't know if you was reading something and forgot to share it, or you were just.
Nah. I'll be using my phone. That's why my screen don't be on. But I'm in my notes. I'm reading from my notes. But like I said, I should have. I'm really thinking about it now. I should have put this on a PowerPoint so that way people could have followed along. What we reading. Yeah.
Okay. But I was gonna say, yeah, man. A lot of people use Halloween nowadays, especially the older people. They use Halloween as an excuse to dress like a whore. To be honest, a lot of women, they go to these Halloween parties. They dress like an angel with the halo on their head, but you can see their whole body. And they turn it into like a fashion show. Halloween is turned into like a fashion show where people see who can dress the most sluttiest, and you have celebrities dressing like other celebrities and people dressing like serial killers, dressing like Jason, Freddy. You know what I'm saying? All type of, it's demonic, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, it really is, man. And that's why, again, we shouldn't be doing these things because it's rooted in pagan tradition. I mean, we don't even have to go into all this history to prove that it's plain as day. But I promise to you, the next episode in this series called, A Holy People in the Pagan World, I'll make sure I have a PowerPoint to share with the people so that way, as we're reading, we can follow along and we can pull up images and we can kind of, it can be better so that way everybody could kind of see what's going on. because this is a lot of good information that I have received, and I just wanted to be able to share it. But nonetheless, let's read 1 Corinthians 10, verses 20 and 21.
The book of 1 Corinthians chapter 10 and verse 20. But I say that the things which the Gentiles sacrifice, they sacrifice to devils and not to God. And I would not that ye should have fellowship with devils. Ye cannot drink the cup of the Lord and the cup of devils. Ye cannot be partakers of the Lord's table and of the table of devils.
Right. Again, you can't serve God and the deceiver, right? You can't serve God and Satan. You have to choose one. And a lot of what we're reading right now is, at least from a historical standpoint, is literally the difference between worshiping the Most High and worshiping the Satan, right? The reason that this festival was created was, again, because these people, the Celts, they didn't fear fallen loved ones. It was demonic spirits that they were trying to hide from. So they would dress themselves up as demonic spirits, so that way the demons would pass by them because they thought that they were them themselves, right? So a lot of it, again, is rooted in abomination, being a necromancer, a consulter with familiar spirits, wizards, enchanters, or witch. A lot of these things we should not be, and a lot of these practices are found in what we know to be Halloween. And people don't consider that because there's watered down versions of it, and we'll get into that momentarily, right? But another point to make is that, a lot of what was centered around Halloween was bonfires and sacrifices, right? And these were literal sacrifices to Celtic deities or demonic spirits. So that's why, again, we shouldn't be sacrificing, like he says in 1 Corinthians 10, to devils, because a lot of sacrifices were made to these demonic spirits to keep them from, I guess you could say, messing with, or whatever, uh doing whatever to these people, right? So now let's get to the Roman influence, right? So um I want to read this, and again, next time I will make sure to the people, man, Salakia, I'll make sure that I put this stuff on a PowerPoint so we can read along verbatim. But for Alia and Pomona, right? These were religious observances dedicated to Roman pagan gods, blending them with the Samhain, created a super pagan festival, right? Could you Google that though? For Alia, which is spelled Feralia, Feralia, and Pomona, Pomona, religious observances dedicated to Roman pagan gods. I just want to see. Um, Reading it from the screen, it says for Feralia, I'm gonna just pronounce it like that, and Pomona are two Roman festivals that were combined with the Celtic festival of Samhain to influence modern Halloween traditions, right? Feralia, a festival honoring the dead, contributed the theme of commemorating the deceased, while Pomona, the goddess of fruit and trees, brought the apple symbol, which is believed to be the origin of traditions like apple bobbing. Now, I necessarily don't know what apple bobbing is. Um, it's when you stick your head in the water and grab the apple with your mouth. Okay, con. So that's what that is. Um, Feralia, what was it? A Roman festival held in late October to honor the dead. Contribution to Halloween. It says this incorporated the theme of remembering and commemorating the deceased into the celebration that would evolve into Halloween. So, again, as you can see, as we're reading, even from the screen, right? Pagan traditions, honoring the dead. And it's nothing wrong, even in Israelite culture, to honor the dead, but it depends on the way that you do it, right? The way we would honor the dead a lot in Israelite culture would be to change our lives or live according to the ways that the Most High God told us to live. So if the dead died in an honorable way, like We could talk about the mother and 7 sons in the book of Maccabees, how they died because they didn't want to eat the king's meat. And for that, the mother and her 7 sons got tortured to death. So the way the Israelites should honor that is by being more austere and standing even more in surety to keep the commandments of God, whether you're facing persecution or not. Right? That's the way we should honor her and her children. But a lot of people, they choose to honor their dead ancestors by dressing up as them or consulting with them, doing whatever it is that they can do to kind of, have an encounter with them in the afterlife. And that's not the way the Lord told us to
Yeah, a lot of people,
operate. Go
a
ahead.
lot
I'm
of.
sorry.
Now you good, my bad, King. I was gonna say, a lot of people, man, they'll go to the grave site and have a so-called picnic with the person and talk to the person like the person hear them. But they gotta understand, like, they got that person sleeping right now, man. He ain't worried about you, or she ain't worried. I ain't trying to be rude or nothing like that. Come off as but that person, they resting, man. You know what I'm saying? They resting. They ain't worried about stuff that's going on that we worried about. But people go talk to them like they just listening to their problems and that they can hear them. And I don't even know on Halloween, a lot of kids around that time on Halloween, that's when a lot of kids go missing around the time of Halloween. There's probably some snatching up going on.
Yeah, too, man. Never knew that bobbing apples was pagan, man. Literally, it's for a Roman goddess. It says the Roman goddess of fruit trees. The apple was Pomona's symbol. So something as simple and nasty as bobbing apples, because bobbing apples is nasty. You don't know, everybody's saliva is in that same water bowl,
Yeah.
in that same bucket. In America, they see it as something fun. They see it as part of the festival, the fall festival. Um, they see the part as like Halloween traditions and stuff. We see it on Disney Channel, but we never stop to think, how was this game created and why was this game created? And it literally was, the incorporation of the festival is thought to explain the modern tradition of bobbing apples and other apple-related games. So we literally see it's for a whole goddess. It's for another god. So, if you ever participated in bobbing apples, make sure you ask for forgiveness from them. Because, there's so many things that we do in the world that, of course, you ask for forgiveness from celebrating Halloween all those years, but something as simple as bobbing apples, you didn't think to ask for forgiveness for, It sounds crazy, but you would hate to get to Judgment Day and have that on your plate. You know what I'm saying? You were caught bobbing apples. You were caught serving the goddess Pomona. You don't even know who the goddess Pomona is. But then they might flash back your memory of you bobbing apples. You like, it was just bobbing apples. Then he gonna say, yeah, broad is the way to destruction, buddy. Depart from me, I never knew you. You know what I'm saying?
It's madness.
It's crazy how much, like you say, like in this title, man, we're living in a pagan world. We got to question everything that we do.
Right. And we said that yesterday on live, man, when we was on the Sabbath on live, man. We got to be the generation of people that is cool with not washing our hands before we eat. And if you don't know what I mean, go back and watch that lesson that we did yesterday, right, to get the full understanding. But we don't question enough. Sometimes people call you weird or they say you're doing too much for questioning these things. But like the brother said, something simple as apple bobbing is honoring a pagan goddess. And there's a lot of people in the world who do this, even at family gatherings, right? They may have games and they may have, they may have an idea of creating fun activities for people to bond together. And that may be one of the games that they created. And it turns out that game is literally to honor a goddess. So like the brother said, if you haven't repented for that, haven't asked the Lord to forgive you for committing that trespass against him, do so expeditiously. I don't think myself personally have ever apple bobbed, but I will be praying for forgiveness for it if I did, because I really can't remember. I doubt it, but because I can't remember, I don't want to just be like, well, if I can't remember, I probably did. But yeah, for Relia and Pomona, man, again, You can see their contributions to Halloween, and this is Roman influence now. This is what we know as double the paganism, and that's what the title in the chat GPT said. Because like I said, I used that search engine to kind of help me formulate how this history was presented, right? So religious observances dedicated to the Roman and pagan gods, blending them with Samhain created a super pagan festival. So the key takeaway from this, the foundation of Halloween is built upon divination, necromancy, fellowship with devils, and sacrifice to false gods. All of those things, like we read in Deuteronomy 18, like we read in 1 Corinthians 10, like we read in Ecclesiastes 9, all of these things are against the word of the Lord. It's plain upon tables. And that's why you really can't follow these things, because you may think it's just simple trick-or-treating, right? And we'll talk about what trick-or-treating actually is. But in reality, you're giving yourself over to spiritual whoredom, because it's so many things and it's so many religions that created what we know as Halloween today in American culture. And it's a lot of spiritual implications behind these practices that you are not aware of. And now you're subjugating yourself to be open to demons to, I guess you could say, attack you, torment you, possess you, because you're following after their ways and you're doing what they want you to do. Now, shifting the gear real quick, we're going to talk about, I guess you could say, the church, the early church fathers, for a split second. And it says the popes, right? Because again, this is in my notes. It says the popes did not abolish Samhain, right? The early church fathers. It said they attempted to baptize it by placing All Saints and All Souls Day on the same dates. This is where we get the definition syncretism from, like we was reading earlier. It says the blending of different beliefs. So you see it today with Christian churches. Instead of trick or treat, they'll host something called trunk or treat, right? Trunk or treat is just as pagan as trick or treat. Trunk or treat is just as wicked as Halloween, right? Why? It's because it's called syncretism. Just because you put I guess you could say, you put a little spin on it, it doesn't take away from the practice, right? The practice of whatever you're doing itself is what made it pagan, right? Let's read. It said the premise that a pope, let alone the early church fathers, abolished Samhain is historically inaccurate. The Celtic festival of Samhain was never officially abolished by the, I guess you could say, papacy, which lacked the authority to do so in Celtic lands. Instead, the early medieval Catholic Church integrated, keyword, integrated, and recontextualized pagan holidays such as Samhain with Christian observances. So just because you repurpose something does not mean you change its original purpose, right? You can change the name, you can change some of the verbiage and wordplay, but what you can't change is its origin and the spiritual implications behind that day. Just because you call it All Saints Day, just because you call it trunk or treat, it does not going to change what the purpose of it was for, right? So again, that's called syncretism, and that's still just as wrong as doing the actual thing. A lot of times we got to remember too, as believers in the word of God, we kind of have to want to be set apart. We kind of got to want to be people who are just cool with not doing something in its entirety just because we can't. You know, there's too many times in the world you try to see people blur the line between the world and the Bible. And we got to stop trying to blur the line of the world and the Bible. The life that God wants us to live is set apart for a reason. Holy, separate. That's Deuteronomy 7:6. If you want to be somebody that follows the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, if you're somebody that believes in the God of Israel, then you have to separate yourself and stop trying to be cool and stop trying to partake of worldly practices, thinking that because you put a little uh godly, quote unquote, godly twist on it, it's cool now. You know? Let's read this that the brother highlighted. It said the church repurposed the tradition rather than abolishing it. First mistake. It says rather than attempting to suppress deeply ingrained pagan festivals by force, the medieval church often adapted them for a Christian context. This strategy allowed the church to absorb local traditions and convert populations more easily. So not only was it used for pleasure, but it was also used for double the pleasure as a marketing tool to convert people. You know, um, we talked about this yesterday that sometimes, man, we think churches hold LGBTQ plus flags in front of their churches just to see if they can get more people to come to church, right? It's nothing more than a marketing tool. And I'm led to believe that that is literally the purpose of it all. Some pastors say, you know what, we need to increase our population, right? We need to increase our church numbers. We need to increase our members. So what we're going to do is we're going to start adapting these worldly pagan customs to appeal to the world, so that way the world can feel comfortable with coming in. What that will do is that will create more people, and that will generate for us more tithes and offerings, more revenue, right? Go ahead, brother. You muted.
That's why it's not important to get caught up in the numbers game of people, man, and to do like David did in his latter days and number the people before war and all of that. Stop getting sidetracked by big populations and fame, right? Because then you make the truth a contest, like you're competing with other religions. We don't compete with other religions, right? Shout out to to those that have confidence in themselves and say that they're not competing with nobody. I'm competing with myself, right? I believe there's a Israelite camp that loves to say that we don't compete with no other camps or churches. We compete with ourselves. We the teachers, right? Nonetheless, that mentality has to be put forth when you walking in obedience with God. Stop comparing yourself. It said broad is the way to destruction. So you shouldn't want to be like the number one religion in the world. You shouldn't want to be like the Catholics, the Muslims, the Christians. You shouldn't want to do that. You want to be opposite. And we're coming up on this holiday season. Your favorite Israelite camp is finna start popping up again. Y'all know who I'm talking about. The ones that celebrate Thanksgiving, right? And they're doing just like what number 3 is saying. They're doing exactly that. They're saying, what they said? We can have more people in our camp if we include the things of the world, because a lot of people they want to be Israelites, but they love their Christmas dinner, they love their Thanksgiving dinner, and hell, what do I know? I love it too. So what do? They add it and they adapt it into Israelite culture, just like the Christian church did with their paganism. They say, you know what? Come and join our camp. Come and join our church. We still celebrate it, but we repurpose it. And it doesn't mean the same thing, but it's on the same day and we eat the same foods. And so they repurpose it just like the Christian church did. And we got to get out the mindset of adapting for the people, adapting for the masses, because that's what Romans chapter 1 tells us. Who served the creature more than the creator? You got to serve the creator, man. Who cares if people follow or not?
Right. Again, the desire to be set apart has to be greater than the desire to make the set apart lifestyle open for everybody, because it's not. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it, right? That's a quote that a lot of people who are athletes like to quote, right? When they in the gym at all wee hours of the morning, putting in work, trying to become the best player at their sport. Sometimes, not even sometimes, a lot of times we have to examine things and really realize if this is meant for us to repurpose it. And the answer is no. You don't have to change the meaning of what Halloween is to benefit the people that you are surrounded by, right? You can literally just say no to Halloween. And at the end of the day, those who believe and understand that we can't practice it, they will be with you. Those who don't understand it, they won't be with you. And guess what? If it was meant for them to understand it, they would. So we got to stop trying to appeal to the world in a sense, because at the end of the day, friendship with the world is enmity with God. Because being a friend of the world, what does it make you? An enemy with the Most High God. So we got to learn how to not blur that line. We got to make sure that that line is bright and as strong as we can see it. But let's read a couple scriptures, right? We already read Jeremiah 10, right? let's go to the book of 2 Corinthians 6 and 14. We're going to read 14 through 18, right? Because we're talking about syncretism. And what does the Bible say about it, right? What does the Bible say about blurring those lines? So let's go to 2 Corinthians 6. Let's read 14 through 18, right?
Who turned it was?
I guess you could read it, Brother Obadiah, since you spoke out.
Con. Be not unequally yoked together with unbelievers. For what fellowship has righteousness with unrighteousness? And what communion has light with darkness? And what concord has Christ with Belial?
Belial.
Or what part has he had believed with an infidel? And what agreement had the temple of God with idols? For you are the temple of the living God. As God hath said, I will dwell in them and walk in them, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people. Wherefore come out from among them and be ye separate, saith the Lord, and touch not the unclean thing, and I will receive you.
Right. Let's read verse 18. Let's read verse 18 to finish it off.
Verse 18. And will be a father unto you, and ye shall be my sons and my daughters, saith the Lord Almighty.
Right, man. Again, what fellowship hath light with darkness? You know, what fellowship hath righteousness with unrighteousness, right? Why are we trying to syncretize things, right? Why are we trying to be in sync with other religions, other customs, other cultures, other practices? As believers, we're called to be set apart, so be that and be comfortable with being that. On the world that you own, everybody can't go with you, and you got to be cool with knowing that. We're cool for saying stuff like that in the world. People think that when God has elevated them, and a lot of times when people say this, it's materialistic. It's centered around materialism. People think they finna get a new house, new car, new job, new money, whatever. You know what I'm saying? And one of the things they say is that they prayed before this, and God said, "Yeah, I'm in the season of separation. You know, I'm on a season of isolation. The journey that I'm on, nobody can go with me. You know what I'm saying? Or there's people who can't come with me, stuff like that. So if you want to get to the kingdom, you have to know that this is a road, and this is a road less traveled, right? This is a road less traveled, meaning that there's going to be a lot of people that don't take this road because it doesn't benefit them. It doesn't make them feel comfortable. It doesn't make them happy, and they can't really see the end goal. They can't really see the end goal of it. This road that we're walking on, the road of righteousness, the road of being set apart, the road of being hallowed, sanctified, right? We cannot blur the lines. We cannot syncretize. We cannot afford to adapt and follow the customs of other gods and other nations, because why? It's against the Most High God. Now, let's go into understanding how America, and this is really much of the last information that we'll pull from, right? So this is really the last part, because the way I guess you could say Chat GPT organized the information, it put all my notes in 3 different sections. So this is talking about the ways of America versus the ways of the Most High God, right? In this section in specific. Let me read this. If you can pull up what's that term? Jack-o'-lanterns, right? The origin of jack-o'-lanterns in Google. And while the brother's pulling that up, the origin of jack-o'-lanterns, I'll read this, right? It says Halloween was revived in America by a culture steeped in commercialism. So pretty much the marketability, right? Being able to benefit and profit off of, you know what I'm saying, this said culture or way of life, right? It was stripped of its overt religious meaning, right? But retained its spiritual form, which is darkness, fear, and death. So pretty much a lot of the Celtic history was removed from it, but at the same time, it still kind of had some of those same spiritual practices or spiritual implications, right? It kept everything that I guess you could say was necessary for the marketability of the holiday, right? So it says jack-o'-lanterns. Jack-o'-lanterns, the original Irish myth of Stingy Jack. Stingy Jack is a folk tale about a man who tricked the devil and was doomed to wander the earth. Carving faces was a ward against the cursed wandering soul. Now, what the brother have pulled up on the screen, I'll read it this. It says the history of the jack-o'-lantern is rooted in ancient Celtic traditions, the Irish folktale of Stingy Jack, and the 19th century immigration of Irish people into the United States. It says originally people carved frightening faces into turnips or potatoes to ward off evil spirits during the Celtic festival of Samhain, right? Remember, they didn't fear ancestors, they feared demonic spirits, right? It says this tradition combined with the legend of a man named Jack who was doomed to wander the earth with only a burning ember and a carved out turnip led to the term jack-o'-lantern, right? When Irish immigrants came to the US, they began carving pumpkins because they were softer and more readily available than root vegetables, evolving the tradition into the Halloween icon we know today. So America took this practice that the Irish were doing and said, we can add that to Halloween. And they did it. You can see a picture right there of maybe a turnip or a carrot, right? Like the brother just got his mouse on, right? The cursor on. You can see that that's not necessarily as cool looking as what you see right next to it, which is the pumpkins and how you can put a candle in the pumpkins and light it up. Again, they wanted to make these faces to ward off evil spirits. I don't know what they thought these evil spirits looked like, but I don't know why, if you want to ward off an evil spirit, you're going to make yourself appear evil. That doesn't necessarily um, make sense to me.
I guess
Secondly, you said what?
it's to scare the evil spirits.
But yeah, but like my question is, how would you scare away an evil spirit? The only thing I could would if you're a believer of God, the best way to scare off something evil is to fill yourself with righteousness, right?
Right.
Because one thing evil spirits hate is light. They hate pure whiteness. They hate purity. So you're somebody that maybe have to pray fast to ward off these spirits, and that's what you got to do. Decorating I guess you could say a pumpkin, which I don't know if a pumpkin is a fruit or a vegetable. I would be leaning toward a vegetable, but um, decorating a pumpkin, carving a pumpkin is not going to save you. And that's one of the things why, again, Halloween is a pagan tradition because the practice wasn't necessarily meant for, the practice was meant for what it looks like to ward off evil spirits. That's why people would dress themselves up as witches and warlocks because they were trying to blend in when the evil spirits came. They were trying to look like them so they wouldn't be subjugated to their attacks. But that's why it's important to know two things. Let's get a book. Let's get the book of uh well um let's get I want to pull this up, but I'll just read this. Let's get the book of Ecclesiastes 12. Ecclesiastes 12, right? We only got a few more scriptures left. So we're not going to be on here too much longer. We have a few more scriptures to read, but let's get Ecclesiastes chapter 12 and let's read verse 13.
Salakia too, man. A lot of brothers, man. In the world, to be honest, in the world, man, it's the women that want to have fun in life, right? The women in life, they want to have the Christmas parties. They want to do the cute hay rides and go on, do a bunch of this stuff to take pictures, right? Even when they get babies, they kind of forcing their babies to do it because of the memories and the pictures, right? But You know, our men are so emasculated that we just go with it. I had a friend from high school put in a group chat, man, this girl got me carving pumpkins. You know, it's one thing to carve pumpkins when you was in elementary school and your teacher made you, but you a grown man carving pumpkins with your socks on in the house.
With your pumpkin pajamas on.
Right. You got pajamas on carving pumpkins for a girl. You got hot cocoa on a hayride with you know sitting taking pictures next to a snowman because of a girl. Right. And then these be the same brothers that you know I really know. I know it's demonic, bro. I know, you know, it's really my girl, bro. It's really my girl. Why are you doing it though? Because you love your girl, you worship your girl, and you too afraid
the things we'll do for love.
Right. You too afraid to put your girl in her place. You too afraid for her to be upset for a few weeks because you ruined her holiday break. Because you said, nah, I don't feel like going out in the cold and taking pictures with Santa Claus. Nah, I don't feel like carving pumpkins. Y'all don't even, the brother that sent it to me, he don't even got kids. She don't even got kids. He just carving pumpkins because she want to make memories with her boyfriend.
Hey, a lot of grown men, man, if it ever came down to it, and when that Christmas season come, it's a lot of grown men. Like if they girlfriends or wives, you know, told them to sit on Santa Claus' lap for them and take a picture. A lot of grown men would sit on Santa's lap, bro, for their girl. They'll sit on another grown man lap for their girl.
And then they'll laugh it off and think it's funny and post it and think it's funny. No, brother, that's gay. No, brother, your girl is making you look crazy. Your girl is making you look crazy.
She gonna post a caption talking about some. Have you been good today? Have you been good this year?
Right. You know, got the gay caption to go with it. But this is the thing. Brothers will go out their wits just so that they can get some at the end of the night. And some of these brothers, by the time they get home, they don't get none because they done got in an argument in the car. So now you did all of that for no reason.
Yeah, man, you kind of got to pray for brothers, man, because, you know, brothers will get blindsided. I know how it is, man. Brothers will get blindsided out in the world, man. Your girl tell you to come over, right? And she talking about she got a surprise for you. Next thing you know, you opening the door, and she got the whole setup. She got 4 pumpkins on the table with 3 thick behind knives, right? She got some Halloween movie playing in the background, and she talking about some surprise. I thought we could carve pumpkins together, right?
And she got the Halloween sugar cookies in the oven. You smell the sugar cookies in the oven. She got the
she done spent her money and her time on this,
right.
So you can't say no,
right?
You can't just walk back to your car.
And in your head, you thinking it is a vibe in here. You know what I'm saying? You ready to take your shoes off and watch the Halloween movie, bro?
You got the lights dim,
and you just talked to the Israelites.
Hey, look, bro.
You just talked to your cousin or your brother that's an Israelite, and you just agreed with him, and now you just like, yeah, man, but it ain't that serious.
That's how the girls be though.
Yeah, that's
how the girls be though, man. If you were to say no, man, you can count her. You can count her a loss.
Oh yeah, it's over with.
It's over.
You cannot be superstitious. Let that girl that you like tell you don't step on that crack. Now you jumping over cracks. She making you go around the pole because you're gonna split the pole, all because you want to get some at the end of the night.
Yep. Hey man, that's legit, man. That happened to me, bro. It had to end it after that, bro. True story.
I can't try to split the pole, man.
Yeah.
Some of you brothers
it wasn't even a full pole, it was a half pole, you know, the little cement poles in front of Walmart.
They'll pull you by your arm. You finna split it. They'll pull you by your arm. Hey, don't split the pole. Come this way.
Like that, you done stretched out my collar and everything.
And then you got simps that'll side with them, right? That's working the door at Walmart talking about some. Yeah, he ain't no man. He can't come back and unsplit the pole for you. He might not be the one for you. Oh, come on, bro. I guess I'm not, bro.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, man. That's why, you know, the wisdom in Sirach said many women have run out of their many men have run out of their wits for women, you know. Because again, brothers don't know how to be men no more and stand on their 10, right? We gotta like like Christ said, what man wants to build a house but counteth not the cost, right? If you want to be somebody who follows the most high God, you gotta count the cost of what comes with wanting to follow him. And it may cost you your relationship. It may cost you that beautiful girl that you so desired, right? You probably got the baddest girl. You probably wanted this girl since you was a child. You knowing your whole life. You was in the friend zone, right? She probably wasn't even a whore. She probably just wasn't feeling you at the time until you hit puberty. You know, you glowed up. Y'all went through college, and now all of a sudden y'all together, right? And you probably this is your dream girl. But at the same time, if you're going to be a follower of the Most High, you got to think, what do you want? You want your dream girl, or you want the dream that you've been chasing, or the dream that you're trying to obtain of receiving salvation from the Most High God? What you think is going to benefit you in the long run, that girl or your relationship with God? And you got to ask yourself that question. And if a girl ain't willing to sit up here and let you lead as the man, and if a girl is not willing to hear you out as it pertains to the scriptures, then you don't need to be with that girl, right? Because again, your job as a man is to be a leader, right? Every man's role is to literally be a leader. Now, again, every man wasn't meant to be the king of the nation. Every man wasn't meant to be the priest. But when we say leaders, every man was meant to lead first himself. As a man, you're always a leader because before you have a family, you have to lead yourself. And when you have a family, you now have to lead that family. If you were blessed and put into position by the Most High God to be a king or a priest or a judge, then you would have that responsibility as well. But the first thing you're supposed to lead is you. And if you can read the room and see that, yeah, this she on the spiritual sense, she not, you know, gelling with me, then don't even sit there and waste your time carving that pumpkin, right? Because then you're gonna be the butt of a joke where, like the brother said, you sitting on Santa's lap for your girl, right? She making you bark like you want it and got you out here biting yourself like you got fleas crawling on you, all trying to impress her and stuff.
Yeah, and then you wait till after the holiday season. She done got you to celebrate Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. Then now she got the nerve to say, "You want to watch one of your lessons?"
Right.
She know what she doing. She
She
done
know what she doing.
She done got you to do everything, and now you thinking it's a chance now because she just asked to see so to watch a lesson, bro. Because she done got you to do it. She feeling sorry for your butt. You supposed to be like Bubba Dub. What Bubba Dub say whenever the Cowboys lose? Shit, you supposed to be like that. You supposed to be like, hey man, I'm out. Off rip. You supposed to see those things spiritually and be like, man, stop playing with my time, man. Stop playing with God.
Man, you know, and this is a learning experience. I will confess a fault right now before y'all on this lesson, right? We're an hour and 8 minutes in. So we only got a few more precepts left after this one, right? But check this out, man. A while back, a long while back, man, I wanted to give alms, right? So I wanted to buy a friend a meal. You know what I'm saying? So we was in Subway and I'm placing the order. My friend knows what type of time I'm on. If I'm buying you something, I'm not buying no pork, man. You know what I'm saying? But pretty much my friend pretty much was like, man, you know, I don't really like no other options in here but the little specific sandwiches or whatnot. So we in the line going back and forth, and I'm telling them, no, I can't buy you that. You know what I'm saying? If you sitting up here trying to order that, you know, what happened was I end up caving in, right? Wrong thing to do. I had to repent.
Got the brother the Italian Supreme Sub.
Man, I got the brother the Italian Supreme Sub, man. You know, and
Got the salami, the sausage, the ham.
man, listen. I felt so bad. I felt so bad, man. It angered me in my soul because I was like, bruh, the only reason I did it is because one, we was already there. I had drove all the way there. Two, we was going back and forth about it, man. And at this same time, right, during this same day, I had been trying to teach them the Bible and stuff like that. So we was going back and forth in line. There was people in line. I should have been a man and walked out, right? It was a learning experience for me. I should have just been a man and walked out and said, well, you know what? Nah, we won't eat here then. You know what I'm saying? But it took for me to make that mistake, right? To learn that I won't be doing that no more. So that's when I learned that, you know, sometimes as men, you got to know when to draw the line in the sand. You know what I'm saying? Certain things you just can't go for. Because at the end of the day, if you fall for one thing, people are going to push your limits. Like the brother said, this girl didn't spiritually freak you out. You didn't hold yourself with Halloween, Christmas, and Thanksgiving. So you didn't got hit from every angle that you could get hit from. You ain't got no more holes to get hit with. You know what I'm saying? You ain't got no more holes to be filled. Now all of a sudden, oh well, let's try your God. Let's try your laws. You done got spiritually pimped out. You didn't let these holidays and holy days these holidays run a train on you. Now you sitting up here like, okay, now it's my turn to invoke some wisdom. That girl not gonna take you serious, right?
You give it up for a lesson that she gonna halfway watch while she on her phone.
Right. She not even listening for real. She just scrolling down social media, you know what I'm saying? And kind of listening. You ask her a question, you all into it, and she like, huh, what you say? No, can you repeat that?
Yeah, meanwhile, she in the group chat. Yeah, girl, he happy I'm watching this lesson with him.
Right. And that's why I'm saying, man. So nonetheless, what we're going into, brothers, is that as men, right? Men, the Lord deals with the men. Men, we have to be the leaders first. And the first thing that we should do is if you're dealing with a woman who has that, I gotta celebrate the holiday spirit or we can't be together, go ahead and walk out and let her stand. Let her stand where leave her where she stands at. Why? Because one, it'll save yourself the headache. And two, it doesn't matter if that girl was the girl you so desired. She can be bad as the bone. But you know what? In the truth, there are a lot of good-looking women that you can find who want to be submissive, who want to follow the laws of God with you. You just got to be willing to endure that moment, that time period of being by yourself and being alone, and use that time to build yourself up in the spirit. Because again, it's not an easy thing to serve the Lord. You got to count the cost. And if you feel like you can't afford to lose this girl, then don't call yourself a believer. Don't call yourself a brother, right? Just call yourself somebody who has a zeal of God, but it's not according to knowledge, right? But let's read this Ecclesiastes 12 and 13.
Ecclesiastes chapter 12 and verse 13 says, let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man.
So the thing that it says, it's fear God, right? Halloween was created out of fear for demonic powers and demonic entities, right? As believers of the Most High, we got to train our minds to be stronger. You know, as a child, I was scared of the dark. As time grows on, I became less scared of the dark, right? But again, it's the Father. The Father is, if once you realize that the Father controls all things, you'll begin to understand why you should fear him more. These demons and devils can't do anything to you that the Father won't allow. The Most High God is the one who kills and he makes alive. He wounds and he heals. Neither is there any that can deliver out of his hand. Satan had to go to the Most High to inquire to touch Job, right? Matter of fact, he wasn't even thinking about touching him. The Lord said, had you considered my servant Job? The Lord commanded him that he could do anything to him but take his life. So
And
we
the
got to
Lord
know.
is kind of chumping them off. Like, you talking about you've been to and fro the earth and you ain't even seen my servant Job? The Lord slick was like, hey, you ain't doing your job, saying you ain't
Right.
doing your job.
Right. Again, man, the Lord is the creator of all these things. The Lord rules all these spirits, controls all these spirits. So therefore, we only need to fear the Lord, right? That's why, again, this verse is powerful because it says, fear God. If we fear the Most High God, we're not worried about none of these devils, right? None of these demons, right? Because we know that the Lord has the final say so in everything. Now, let's go to another precept, Matthew 6 and 24. Let's go to Matthew 6 and let's read verse number 24. Right?
Yeah, man. You know, this holiday is all about scaring you and putting you in the spirit of fear. So you know it's off with this opposite of what the Most High God wants for you. Everywhere you look, they're trying to scare you. You going into Home Depot or Lowe's, you're liable to get scared because they got all this stuff in there, bro. You turn the corner and it's a 6 foot tall demon ghost staring right down at you with glowing green eyes.
Hey man,
Right.
you got people that decorate their yard, man. They'll decorate their whole yard Halloween, bro. Have all type of stuff, scary stuff in their yard. I'm like, bro, y'all trying to scare the kid. Y'all trying to scare the kids. Like it's a very
Man, I
demonic
went to
thing. I
go.
know they
I
used to
went to
put
go.
like blades and candy back in the day on purpose. So people would bite the candy and the blade to cut them in their mouth.
Man, I went to go eat pizza with my family on Friday, and in the plaza that the pizza place was in, there was some kid standing in the middle of the parking lot the whole time we was there with a Jason mask on and a big behind machete, just standing in the middle, bro, thinking he cute, bro. I'm like, bro, you got kids walking around and stuff, bro. Like, and you know, it never really cringed me out and kind of pissed me off until I had my own kids, bro. You know, and then it's like, bro, you give these kids nightmares, bro. And it's like, bro, like I really was like, man, because I know he probably like a teenager or whatever, thinking he's funny, but I'm like, bro, it's not cute, bro. Like, nigga really come over there and slap the hell out of you, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah,
I don't know.
he thinking he gonna go viral. Somebody gonna be like, who is that? Who is that Jason in the parking lot on this street on this
It was
edge?
broad daylight too, though, and I'm like, bro,
Thinking it's gonna be so funny when he see himself on Instagram and everybody talking about it. Nobody cares that much. Everybody trying to live their life, bro.
Right, man. Let's read this in Matthew 6:24, man.
You doing that? It's a whole government shutdown.
Jason mask on.
Right. Matthew 6:24. No man can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon.
Right, man. You can't serve God and mammon. So I forgot to write down the trick or treating right in my notes, but you know, trick or treating just pretty much comes from the practice of exchanging. It's like trade. You know, people would uh, do performances, and in turn for those performances or prayers, right, they would receive gifts. So that's kind of what the origin of where trick or treating came from. I think it was called guising, uh, or yeah, it was called guising and souling. You know what I'm saying? Type in real quick. Type in yeah, the origin of trick or treating. The origin of trick or treating. Um, yeah, it says originated from ancient European customs, including the Celtic festival of Samhain and the medieval Christian souling tradition, where people went door to door in disguise, right? And during the souling, this is what I was reading earlier. It says the poor would ask for soul cakes in exchange for praying. That's what I was mentioning, the praying, right? Praying for the family's dead, right? So you would pray for the family's dead, receive a soul cake, right? That's the ancient practice of souling, right? While in the Irish and Scottish guising, that's what I was talking about as well, children perform tricks like singing songs for treats. So that's why we say trick or treat, right? The modern version of trick or treating began to take shape in North America in the 1920s, with the phrase itself appearing in the 1920s or 30s. So we will perform tricks for a treat, just like prostitution. That's how it really is when we have women who perform tricks for a treat. They treat is the money, but what they get for the money is the trick. You know what I'm saying? And that's why women who prostitute themselves were called tricks, right? Who received treats in return for the tricks that they turned. The same thing people did with guising, right? Where children perform songs for treats. It's just like people who go dare to dare, I mean dare to dare, door to door singing like carols. Yeah, I don't know where I was. I was trying to say Carol, and I was trying to say door at the same time, and it came out dare to dare. So it's just like people who have these choruses, or these quartets, and they go door to door singing these carols. You know what I'm saying? And people give them money in a bag or stuff like that, right? So that's where the practice of trick or treating came from. But again, it said it originated from ancient European customs, including the Celtic festival of Samhain, right? We're not supposed to practice these things because if you can go back to Matthew 6 real quick, going back to the Bible, no man can serve two masters. You're either going to hate one or you're going to love the other. You're going to hold one and despise the other. You can't serve the Most High God and Mammon, right? So we have to kind of do away with the practice of following after these holidays because they're not set up for believers of God, right? If you're a believer of God, then there's holidays in the Bible or holy days in the Bible that you should celebrate. That's found in Leviticus 23. There are others that are not found in Leviticus 23 that you can celebrate as some are found in the Apocrypha, right? You have some mentioned in the book of wisdom, not wisdom of Solomon, Lord. You have some mentioned in the book of the Maccabees, which is the feast of dedication. You have some which is mentioned as the day of Simon, which is in the feast of dedication. Which is in the book of Maccabees. You have the destruction of Nicanor, right, which is in the book of Second Maccabees, First Maccabees. You have all these other holidays, holy days that you can celebrate that are found in the scriptures. And if you want to live a set apart lifestyle according to the Most High God, why not follow those? You know, let me read two more. So I got two more scriptures, right? Let's go to Ephesians 5:11. So while he's pulling that up, man, I just want to recap. We got to separate. Um, we didn't covered a lot of history, and I know again next time to be better in presentation to make sure that the viewer stays engaged. I will ensure you that I have a PowerPoint put together so that way people cannot kind of lose track of what's being said, because I'm just reading from my notes tab and not necessarily from the screen, right? But we just covered a lot of history, right? Talking about the Samhain festival, talking about Rome, the church fathers, the commercialized acts of America. But nonetheless, if you don't remember anything else, the one thing you can remember is that in all that information that was presented, none of it was for God, right? All of the things that have been mentioned in regard to the Samhain, Halloween, souling and geising, all of that is all rebellion against the Most High God. And to be set apart, we are to be a holy people. So let's read Ephesians 5:11.
Ephesians 5:11. And have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather reprove them.
Right. Reprove the unfruitful works of darkness, right? We shouldn't have no fellowship with it. We shouldn't be trunk or treating because at the end of the day, it's a practice that was rooted in paganism. It's not of God. No matter if you try to change it from trick or treat, trunk or treat is just as pagan. The practice is still the same, right? Why not keep the Feast of Dedication? Why not keep the Feast of Tabernacles? Why not keep the Feast of Purim, which is mentioned in the book of Esther, right? Why not keep the Day of Atonement? Why not keep the memorial of the blowing of the trumpets? Hey, women, why not lament for the daughter of Jephthah 4 days out the year, right? There are so many other holy days that we have in the scriptures that we can take part of as believers. Why try to make the world benefit? Why try to put the world inside of God? God is bigger than the world. He's above the world. Like it reads in Acts 7, heaven is his throne, earth is his footstool. What house can ye build him? There is nowhere that the Lord can dwell in this earth. He cannot dwell in a temple made with men's hands. So we have to get out this ideology that we can blend the God and the world. We can't do so, right? The last precept I'll pull is let's read 1 Peter chapter 2 and verse number 9.
The book of First Peter chapter 2 and verse number 9. No, First Peter chapter 2, verse number 9. But ye are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, and a holy nation, a peculiar people, that ye should show forth the praises of him who hath called you out of darkness into his marvelous light.
Right. Hey, look, we're peculiar people, man. The Lord had called us out of darkness into his marvelous light. There's a reason why Halloween is kept at a nighttime, right? It would be called All Saints and All Souls Day, right? That was held on November 1st. The evening before would be called All Hallows Eve, right? So a lot of people associate, uh, a lot of Christians teach that Halloween stems from All Hallows Eve because they get their ideas from the early church fathers, right? Not necessarily the Celtic practice of Samhain. Nonetheless, all of those things are pagan. He called us out of darkness into light. We're not supposed to honor the evening before All Saints and Souls Day, right? We know the beginning of our year to be in the spring, the month of Abib, right? And we know that that's not nowhere near October 31st or November 1st or November 2nd. We don't have necessarily a Day of the Dead. When Baruch told us in the book of Baruch to remember the dead Israelites, he wasn't telling us to put together a festival to honor them. He was telling us to remember their works. And if they were wicked, learn what not to do from them. If they were righteous, learn to be just like them. The same way we follow Christ. Christ was a righteous leader among the people. So therefore, we have to strive to be like him. But we should learn from the examples of Saul, right? Who took counsel of a witch and was put to death for it. Hey, we're not supposed to do those things, right? We got to call ourselves out of darkness and walk in the light of God. But with that, man, we can shut this thing down because we on here an hour 26 Salakia, because I know we started 30 plus minutes past time due to me, again, not counting the cost, getting my hands caught up in something and looking back and realizing, oh, dang, it's way after 9. So through the Spirit, the information was presented and came out. Like I said, this will be a series of lessons that we do. It'll be titled the same, but today we focused on Halloween as believers. We brought out a lot of scriptures and presented a lot of history as to why we should not be partakers thereof. One thing that we did learn new today is that apple bobbing is a pagan practice dedicated to the god Pomona. So we cannot do apple bobbing, you know. But nonetheless, man, do brothers got anything to add?
Good lesson.
Con. Well, with that being said, it's 11 o'clock. We'll shut this thing down through the Spirit and say, all praises, glory, and honor be to the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We'll be back on here Tuesday with the brother Danal spearheading the lesson. But again, we're set apart, a holy people in the pagan world. This was episode 1, right? And if you're not gathering, you're scattering. Shalom.